We're just discussing brushes.
The age-old question.
Yeah.
Which brush is better?
Round brush, man. Everyone knows that.
100%.
Yeah.
Gonna ask you what brushes do you use? That's the question that everyone asks.
Oh, I use my brushes, man. You can get them on.
Yeah, they're your Patreon.
Well, no, you can actually get some of my basic ones on what you call it on my
Gumroad?
site. Yeah,
Oh,
they're
yeah.
available, dude. They're available.
Oh, but I want that one brush that makes you paint super fast. Like, I don't believe in this whole technique thing. I believe that the brush
my
is what
God.
does
Oh
Sure.
my God.
I will say though, I understand why people would ask these
Yeah.
types of questions, but it is missing the bigger point for sure. With that being said, though, today's Q&A day. So,
Okay.
if you got a question, feel free to ask that question.
Let's see if anyone wants to go first. Go ahead, I guess.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask something. So you know some of the artists that write games. Do you have any insight on
do.
like their techniques and stuff? I know that you taught Simon Dubik or something, or you
I
had him in
did.
your mentorship.
Yeah.
Dude, I love his stuff so much. Like,
Yeah, he's a really hard worker, man.
yeah. So if you have any insight on like maybe their methods or something like that, because I'm still confused about how Simon does his thumbnails. They're just hyper realistic and really well done.
He just paints them, and some of them he photo bashes. Oh, hold on, my baby.
No.
Night.
What's his name, sorry?
I'll link you to the art section.
Yeah, thank you.
His stuff
that'd
is
be
really
great.
insane.
Pretty sure I
love
have
you.
it, but
I'll go tuck you in a little bit. Oh, my baby.
let's see.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, he
Crazy.
Yeah, he took my class. He did a lot of those thumbnails in my class. Yeah, and what I will say is that the way he approaches it is a combination of painting and photo bashing. It depends on which ones you may be looking at.
Yeah,
but
because I just noticed they're really, really realistic. I was like, what the hell? That's crazy.
Yeah,
and they're just thumbnails.
Yes, absolutely. So I remember when he did my class too, he did really well, but then I told him to go even harder. And so he did. And that's why they went even more epic. Because I told him that he needs to understand that it's okay to like push the thumbnails and just try to increase the polish. Because he found that he spent a lot of time on the first thumbnails he did. And I told him very much what I told you guys, is they just then have more clarity and push it even further after the fact. And so he did, and then that's what the result was. Now, I don't know what he's doing over at Riot. I have no clue. I haven't talked to him in a while. But what I do know is that when he was taking my class, I told him that he was already good enough. He just needed to like apply and go and try to get a job, go to events and do whatever he could. So he did. He ended up getting an internship at Sony Santa Monica. I think he went to Brainstorm. They hooked him up with that. He's one of the elites. Wow. And then he did that. And then the internship got him in the ranks of like getting his artwork exposed to some people in Santa Monica. And then that's when they reached out to him over at Riot. And so the rest is history. Yeah, man. Like in terms of his method, it probably isn't anything you haven't seen before. It's just that it's impressive, you know?
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, man. I catch myself doing this quite often, where, especially in the beginning, where I would see somebody do something, and then I would really want to learn how they did it, and then I would go do it, and then realize that I kind of already knew how to do it. I'm just terrible, and and it's just like the fix this problem is to fix my terribleness, not see what he did or she did, right? And especially now, that's just very true. There's very few things where I look at it and I'm just kind of like, like I get like my immediate reaction is just like, what, how, you know? And then I think about it and I say, no, I could probably do it just using this method, you know? And so I actually have a different philosophy these days of like, okay, it's less about the how, it's more about how can I, with whatever skills I have. And if there's an opportunity to try to learn new tools and new processes, then so be it. But if there's no need to, then I won't worry about it, you know? But I do get, like right now it's just like on Facebook, and I saw my buddy Jama do these like 2-minute like sculptures, and I was like, oh man, this is so cool. And even right now, I was like, oh, he's used Adobe Medium, which I didn't even know. I think Adobe bought Medium, or is brand recognition. I don't know. Whatever the case is, I immediately was like, oh, I should go buy Medium, Adobe Medium. And I was like, wait, but I already have it and I rarely use it because of X reasons, you know? And so I was like, oh, see, dang it, I got caught up in that again. So I too do it, you know? But my advice generally is stick to the fundamentals. One thing too, I saw something that about another tool called Houdini. It's like a really great procedural tool. In fact, I still think I should. Yeah, I think I should still learn it because there's so much there. But then I asked myself, well, what am I trying to replace? And is it something that I need to replace? Because there's so much to learn anyway. And maybe instead of replacing a tool, I could just get better at the tools I already have. Is there really something that this is doing where out of the box, it's clear that I should adopt it? Blender is a great example of this. Oh no, I don't have Blender 2.9. This won't matter. Well, actually, let me go see. Let me double check. No, actually, I could probably do it. We just don't have the. No, it won't matter. Let me get it right now. I thought I had it. Blender 2.9. Yeah, you know, I did download it. Hold on. I just remembered it is in a very specific location. Just open it up. Blender builds. There we go. I just got to pin this to my taskbar. Move it right over here. There you
go. Also, I just remembered to ask special training about the techniques. You mentioned last time that I should bring it up about practicing or something like that.
Oh yeah. What was the context again?
It was, I think, a specific training on how to not think when you're designing or something like that.
That's right. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, I just remember that.
All right. So I'll get into that in just a second. But to get back to the whole tools versus like just getting skills, that's the best way to think about it. But I do recommend you should learn tools and you should practice workflows. Absolutely. You know, absolutely. Yeah. If you see Simon, if he does a demo, there will be great insight for sure, especially if you're still starting out. But I don't know for sure exactly his every moment of process, but he has and shares a lot of the same philosophy that I have because I taught him. And, even from the beginning, I used to teach at schoolism years ago. And he very much was a student of mine then. And he was far, far worse. And when he took my class later, he was so good. He like practiced so much in that time, which was really cool to see. Yeah, it's really cool. And so, yeah, he definitely was not good for a long time too. Very much like when I showed earlier with my own work. But anyway, so Blender's open. So let's do some cool stuff with Blender. So this is a good example of of, yeah, that's fine. Actually, I don't have to do that. Let's go to sculpting. Let's go to remesh. Sure, let's just do it. Yep, I did it. Okay. And so, you know, you can do this thing where you can essentially like live rig your model.
Oh my god. What?
And then because I know, man, that's cool, dude.
Just blew my mind.
0.08. Let's do that. Let's get a little bit smaller. Rematch again. Oh, I went too far back. What's the Control Shift Z? Control Shift Z. There you go. I was trying to do the wireframe. There you go, so I could see it. Okay, and then you can do the cloth tool.
Oh yeah.
Which I'm sure you've seen this. This is doing the rounds online, and then bam, you got
Oh my god.
a cool looking pillow. And then if you're clever, which I am, you could potentially design some sort of thing, and then you got a thing that looks like it's covered in cloth, right? Yeah, look at that. Ooh,
Wow.
you know? And it's a proper sculpting tool, so you can come in here and you can still sculpt, you know, and smooth out some areas that might be a little too rough around the edges. Yeah, no. And then you can go back over here. You can do pusher. Now let's do pinch, and then just like bring that in there. Just suck that cloth up in there. Right now you're creating like space pillows. You know what I'm talking about? Like where it's like all kind of like vacuumed. The air is vacuumed out of it.
So cool.
So this is like, I had like a debate with somebody because like, you know, Marvelous Designer is still great, and I'm like, yeah, but I mean, look, if you put this in the right person's hands, like someone who has artistic ability, they might not need to use Marvelous Designer. They can just come into Blender and make, you know, cloth object to their bidding, because it's doing a couple of things that's hard to do in something like Marvelous Designer, which is properly light it, right, for one, but also that you can, sculpt on it. Like you can kind of simulate, and you can proper simulate it. You know, like you can go in here. I forget where it's at. Yeah, right here. You turn into, no, that's soft body. That's not what I want. Cloth. There you go. Okay, let's just see what happens. Hit play. Let it become. Oh, well, maybe it'll
There's
help.
no collision.
I need something to go against. Let's put a plane. Let's do something simple. That's fine right there. Okay. Make this collision. Yeah. Now let's do it. Oh, this doesn't have cloth on it anymore. Yeah. And just kind of let it do its thing. It's probably not going to do it the way that I was expecting, but it's still, that's pretty cool. You made a little cloth pile, you know? But like maybe you wanted that base to have a cloth wrinkling to it, right? There you go. You know? And if you had a, like something proper, like what you could probably do is just make another one of these. And then this does not have cloth on it. This does. And we go back to time. And then we just scale this one just a scooch. Scale it a scooch. Okay. Make this collision. Let's see what happens. Yeah, there you go. All right, so maybe you can get a little bit more dynamic cloth sim. I guess it's too similar, so it's like basically doing the same thing, right? But you can play around, right? You can mess around and start experimenting. And this is like my 4th time using the cloth simulation ever in my life, right? And even with my minimal amount of effort, like I'm already coming up with really believable looking cloth stuff, right? And 3D Coat also has something close to that too, which is crazy. You know? So my thoughts on tools and stuff and learning tools, that's pretty much how that works. I focus a lot of my time and effort on fundamental skills, and then I learn tools as I go because tools will show value. But I always then also answer the question, what am I replacing or what am I going to get out of it? Yes. And so, sorry, my wife was talking to me. So that's how I would handle that. Yeah. At least that's how I handle that kind of thinking whenever it crosses my mind, because it crosses my mind a lot too. All right, so techniques. So what to practice in terms of getting better, right, at like making things more intuitive? Well, you need to learn how to draw without looking at reference. Okay. Hold on just a second. Give me like 10 more minutes. Okay.
10 more minutes, that's it.
Oh, you guys heard the wife. You should see her too. She's giving me the spicy eyes.
Oh no.
You're in trouble.
So a good way to do this is, remember how I talked about the studying and then like tell the guy to test, that's how you would do it. So you imagine that you would have like a bunch of anatomy references and you're studying the anatomy references. Yeah. And then let's say you're like studying and practicing like the clavicles insertion into the body and all that good stuff, right? So you'd study all that. You do like 2 hours of studying. And then you give yourself 15 minutes to draw what you remember. What this will do is it will do a couple things. One of the first things that it will do is that it will challenge your brain to kind of do recall. And when you have very low recall, that means that the information that you were thinking you were absorbing was clearly not being absorbed. You understand? But that's okay. So you want to like make sure that you don't beat yourself up for it. And remember, it's not only about what to do, it's about what not to do, correct? So you learn what not to study or how not to study. You know what I mean? Whatever you did maybe wasn't the appropriate studying challenge for this specific task. When people do master copies, for instance, you're not learning how to retain information of whatever you're drawing, right? You're actually learning how to use a tool better. So for instance, like let's say I wanted to learn Blender or Houdini, right? I would make something that I already knew how to make, like in another software, yeah? Because I'm not trying to learn how to also understand, I don't know, like how to design architecture, right? At the same time as me trying to learn Blender, right? I am going to make a spoon because I can make a spoon in 3D Coat. Let me make a spoon. Actually, I don't know if I could make a spoon. In fact, it might be easier in Blender. But you get my point, right? So when you're studying, you might catch that. That's what I caught. I remember I used to study like that a lot. And then whenever I would try to actually draw something for myself from imagination, nothing would come out of my mind. And I was so frustrated. I was like, how come, And then it just hit me. It's like, it's because I'm just copying, man. It's like, those large puzzles, those like 400, 500 piece puzzles, 1,000 piece puzzles, That's essentially what you're doing when you do a master copy, except instead of puzzle pieces, you're just dealing with pixels. How do I convert these set of pixels and put it onto another set of pixels? You know what I mean? And so that's not really going to teach you anything of value. when it comes to concept art. It's going to teach you how to draw really good faces and apples or whatever the hell you're practicing, right? But even then, you won't be able to necessarily draw an apple from memory, which is the great irony. You would always need a photo reference. Yeah? But when you do this test, you're going to reveal that kind of stuff. And so then you go back to studying. So what happened for me is like, okay, within my study, I would test myself. So it wasn't like I had begun my test. I would do miniature tests within the study. I found that helped a lot, you know? But the idea is that when you actually began that 15-minute test, or you can expand it, it could be 20-minute test, 1 hour test, right? Whatever, right? But whatever test you're objectifying your results on, right? You need to see if there's an improvement. So if we were doing the clavicle stuff again, I'd go back and study the clavicle stuff again, but this time a proper study, yeah? And then I'll do the test again with the same parameters, 15 minutes. I don't change anything, you know? Because if I change the time, if I gave myself 20 minutes instead of 15 minutes, then that might not be a fair assessment if I learned something. Maybe I just gave myself more time, right? And it's not a real good measurement of whether I got anything out of my study. Maybe the time just helped me kind of be a little more patient. You should start with that out of the gate. And again, if you feel like you just need to add more time, just in general, maybe you started off with the too fast of time or too slow of time, right? Whatever that might be, you can adjust it. Just make sure that that's your new adjustment. Like you won't like, so for instance, let's say change it to 20 minutes, like I said, yeah. And I feel better about it, then I will make sure that every study that I do after that is a 20-minute timeline. You know what I mean? I won't keep changing the time too often. I will start to kind of recognize that I'm just kind of slowly moving the goalposts too much, you know? You just need some real quantifiable results so you can compare your growth. That's all. 15 minutes for me always worked because it was low stress. Because it was like so little time. Like, so I was already kind of forgiving of how bad I was going to be, you know? And that's how you truly get to the point where you don't think about stuff, because you are slowly but surely training your brain to have a lot of this information, second knowledge. Yeah? Intuitive knowledge. And here's another tip. When you start to dream about it, like whatever the hell you're studying, that's a good sign. Because what that means is that your brain is like, dude, why does this person keep looking at this stuff? All right, so be it. Let's train in our dreams. You know, even when you're sleeping, we're training. That's what's happening. Literally, that's what's happening. Because your brain's like, okay, we gotta make up some time, dude. You know? So that's a good sign if you're dreaming about it. But it's also a little unhealthy if you can't sleep because of it. So you got to make sure that you have a good balance, that it's not like constantly on your mind, you know?
Yeah.
So hopefully that gives you a little bit more helpful understanding of how to get there. And obviously to the tests and studies themselves, there's so many things you can be testing and practicing. So it's more of like a general thing. Yeah. But I can tell you that it's not only like good work for me, it's scientifically proven. There's a book called Make It Stick. Read that book. That book's all about this type of stuff. Now, I didn't read this book and then I said, I'm going to do this. I actually discovered this on my own. And to become a better teacher, I would read books like that and how to teach. And pretty much those books were just more like vindication than teaching me anything that I already didn't know. You know what I mean? Like I already knew. It was just vindication and better worded. And it was also just like, now I can say that this has scientifically been proven. You know, this is not just my hypothesis. This is theory. Make sense? Like there are other people that had the same like thought about teaching and learning. They put it to the test, literally, like scientifically. Which is hilarious because we don't actually implement most of this stuff in public education. or even private education. It's hilarious. The science is there. Nobody gives a fuck.
Oh yeah, totally. I'm like super pissed right now because our state opened up, and yesterday everyone was at the bar, like
Cool, man.
so now, like what? Give it a week, and we'll close back up again.
Yeah, I think it's it takes about 14 days,
Yeah.
and so I think it's gonna start
Oh,
winding up pretty fast for sure.
we already had on the news, one barber shop opened up and someone tested positive for COVID. So everyone who went to that barber shop now needs to be tested. Yep.
Don't tread on me. All right. Any questions?
I don't know. I have one question about so I've been having this issue with like being kind of, I would say, like scared of applying for jobs,
Uh-huh.
because I always have this thought in the back of my head that uh, oh, I do stuff really at a really slow pace,
Uh-huh.
and I'm always afraid that if I get hired or anything like that, that once I start working, I'll be like, oh, they'll like ask for deadlines and stuff, and I'll be like, oh, I'm probably not gonna be able to make it to the deadline time.
Sure.
So like it makes me not even uh, apply for certain jobs and stuff like that.
Well, I mean, you might want to try anyway, because yeah, maybe you'll fail, but you'll learn. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
especially if it's like freelance, like the type of job where you could probably do in a safety net with your current job.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like kind of
Yeah.
just one-off illustrations and such. Um, but it's worth doing because you'll teach yourself to be more accountable. Because it's one thing you're just doing it for yourself and to build a
Yeah.
portfolio. It's another thing when other people are going to pay you and they're like pissed.
Yeah.
Like that's a pressure that I can never simulate. Nor, or I can definitely simulate it, but I don't think it's a good teaching tool. This is not the proper environment, but I do suggest people put themselves in that environment, and I give them the the premise of around like, you should be very very thoughtful that it's okay, like you're gonna bounce back from it. There is no real blacklist, you know
Yeah.
unless you genuinely screw them over, right?
Okay.
Or you are like just a mean person and you say and do stupid stuff, right?
Yeah.
That kind of stuff can get you blacklisted. There are people that are on shit lists, but rightfully so. But let me
Yeah.
just be clear: like you have to do some real terrible things, okay?
Yeah.
Because the people that are on my list is probably like I can count them on one hand.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's not a lot of people. I know thousands of artists, tens of thousands. It's a very low percentage.
Okay.
Yeah, you
But
should
like
try, man. You should try. And if you
any
feel like you need to improve your portfolio and or your abilities, then yeah, you've got to do that. Like if
well
you feel like that's the reason, then you have to change it. Yeah.
any suggestions, I guess, for like smaller uh studios that you think we that would be, how should I put this, like because I remember when I went to THU, um, they like one of the suggestions from some of the artists were like, oh, like apply for the smaller studios, and take what you can get at the beginning.
Sure.
So I was like, well, what constitutes a smaller studio?
Probably like
Because
indies and stuff.
okay,
Go to like game jams. Go to like obscure websites like board game companies, on like board game forums and stuff, and just offer your services.
okay,
You can go to like Fever or Fiverr. That's another website. Like there's like these kind of like pay for
hmm,
commission type stuff. You could be like, hey man, I'll do an illustration for like $25, which is super garbage rate. But like if
yeah,
you're just trying to practice getting yourself accountability, that's a great way to do it.
okay, yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
So there's definitely ways, my dude.
Mhm.
You just got to be proactive. All right, guys. I'm going to have to end the class a little sooner than I would normally for Q&A. Usually I go really hardcore. But what I will do is make sure next week I'll actually go through the reviews really fast. and then give a proper lengthy Q&A session. But even for Wednesday of next week, you guys can always ask questions during your critiques. So feel free to ask them then and hold on to them
Cool.
from now. But with that said, have a great weekend, y'all. Hope you guys had a great first week of class. I feel happy with the work that's been submitted. Keep up the good efforts. Don't be strangers. And I'll talk to you guys later. Cheers,
Sure
guys.
thing.
Thanks,
Sure.
man.
Have a good one.
Have
Have a good night, guys.
Yeah.
Good night.
Thank you for watching this video. I appreciate it. Please subscribe to watch more in the future. If you like the video, I would appreciate a thumbs up. If you like this content, you can go to my website, robotpencil.net, where you can find mentorships, tutorials, and a Patreon to get more exclusive content. Thanks again, and I'll see you guys in my next videos.